Good evening, chaperoos and chapettes, whoever is out there watching these. What have I done today? Well, I found the 2 spare batteries I had lying around are completely dead, so they'll be waiting for scrap. I also found the 3rd one that I had up here is dead, but it is charging, so that's a good sign. What have I been doing? Well, this is the key barrel from the motorbike. Let's cut it off the top yoke there. This is the ignition barrel. That's been smoothed off, so it's not going to jag into me or anything. I've extended these cables because they were literally about 6 inches long, so that they could go and plug straight into the motorbike. Obviously, there's a little bit of a longer distance between the ignition barrel and wherever I'm going to be putting the ECU and everything in the motorbike, so I've extended the cables. The 2 thick power cables coming to the ignition barrel have gone through this insulated core. It's actually, I think it's domestic 2-core cable, but it does the job. It's multi-core inside, so it's just thick copper cable. Really, it doesn't really matter what it's from. But I've then used some spare wire that I had on a reel in the electronics box. Ignore that box. To extend the other 3 cables that came from the ignition barrel, so that I now have a length of cables maybe 6 to 8 feet long. That should be plenty. If there's any extra on there, I can just reel it up. And then I had some spare conduit lying around and some tape, some cable ties, just to stop it spreading about. So that's ready to go. I have tested it, and there is continuity, and it does switch the connectors at the end there. So I know that's working. The next thing I've done, nothing with the engine. Again, no welding wire, so that can't get done at the minute. However, the jack underneath collapsed overnight, or over the last couple of days, and the engine stayed exactly where it was, with a gap underneath the jack. So the bracing I did at the front there was enough to stop the engine from tilting this way or dropping. So that's done its job, and obviously when I get the bracing at the back there, it'll be even stronger. Like I said, this one at the front is temporary until I can figure out a softer mounting option, or bite the bullet and go solid mounted and just weld it to the chassis, whichever is going to be the easiest to do. The main thing I've been doing today, though, is this. That is a load of old wiring for interior features from the car that I pinched the loom from. Now, the reason there's so much spare cabling is the loom, the loom came out of a car with, it had electric windows, it had central locking, and it was a 5-door model. So the amount of cabling here is enough in there for it had remote central locking and an immobiliser and all sorts of stuff that not needed on the car. So all these cabling, this cabling in here is for speakers in all 4 doors, central locking in all 4 doors, electric windows in all 4 doors, the boot latch and all that kind of stuff, interior lighting. I think it had airbags as well, so there's airbag wiring and stereo wiring and different, all sorts of stuff that's not needed. So all of that came out. If we go around this side without killing myself, there's even more here. All of this, none of this is needed. A lot of this on this side is for the heater controls. So all of the heater box and the variable air conditioning stuff and all that kind of stuff. The car that the loom came out of was fully kitted out, power steering, air conditioning, electric windows, central locking, that kind of stuff. Doesn't need any of that stuff, so that's what you're seeing the remnants of. That's actually a box for the remote central locking there. I picked that up. Control assembly super lock. That's for remote central. I believe that's for remote central locking. It might not be. What I'll do, I have here, I've got the ECU a matching chip and transponder, still in the old key. That key doesn't fit anything on the car, it's just there for the transponder. The transponder relay box, which fits on the passenger side of the car, and I'll probably chuck that with it as well. I've got the key and key barrel as well, which can be matched from any car. It doesn't. Those are the most important things if you're swapping an ECU over, a loom over from car to car, or an ECU over on a Micra. Those are the bits you need because those are the immobiliser stuff. What have I got in here without twatting my head on the wings that I've got up there? What have I got in here? We've got that huge rev counter that somebody can have if they want it. I've taken out the heater matrix temporarily. It's sat over there. Taken out a heater matrix. I'm not sure if I'm going to run it. I think I said this last time. I don't know if I'm going to run the heater matrix or seal those holes up and run an electric. The only thing I can think of to do in this area with the fan I have here is to actually get an old hairdryer. Bear with me. Use the heating element from an old hairdryer and place it in front of this fan. This fan, it's wired and it works. That blows quite a lot of air through the splitter here and then through the original windscreen vent to clear the windscreen. It's a requirement in road cars, and it's nice if you're driving on wet roads or a wet racetrack because the windscreen will mist up. And yes, this is a brand new windscreen. However, I didn't shell out and get a heated windscreen, which I should have done. The mess of wiring isn't actually a mess. Everything is connected from here to here. Nothing is disconnected in this circuit here. What we have is pretty much lights and wipers. That's it. There are hazard lights and a rear heated screen here, which isn't really necessary. It's just the button came in that block, and I'm eventually I'm probably going to replace that with a push button emergency flashers, or the hazard warning lights. That's what I'm looking for. God, my brain's gone to mush today. All I've done so far on here is remove the cables that are not needed for the parts that I mentioned before, and then double checked all the connections for what's remaining, and I did test. There was enough charge in one of these batteries to flick the relay on for the hazard lights, so I know the hazards are working. They also turn off when you release the button. The fuel pump, the washer bottle, and the heater fan all still work. They're on independent circuits, so they should have no issues with working. And I haven't been able to check the lights yet. However, if push comes to shove and the lights are not working, what I'll do is I will isolate the windscreen washer circuit, and now I will remove the entire wiring loom up to, there's a break in the loom just there where that foil tape is. There's a break in the loom just there that will allow me to trace backwards the lights on the back of the car and the lights on the front to wherever the relays are, and then run my own wiring to the stalk on the other side there, and then tidy the wiring up. I think I've managed to, basically anything that wasn't plugged in, I tested everything before I started, and then everything that wasn't plugged in, I cut the plugs off so that there's no confusion of where the plugs go. There's simply no plug there at all. Then de-taped or de-loomed the loom, if that makes sense, and then pulled all the cables through and traced them right back to the fuse box, cut them off at the back of the fuse box. If there's no connector on the end, they're not needed. They're not plugged into whatever it was they were supposed to be plugged into, and they've gone. And there is already no ECU harness in here because the ECU's sat over there. Once I've got all this tested and it's working, I will reloom it and tidy it up so that it sits underneath this shelf here. That bracket is for the washer bottle here, which I've taken from they usually sit in the front right hand corner of the car underneath the front bumper. However, because I'm not going to have a light on the dashboard that tells me there's no washer fluid, not that I think these have one anyway, but it's always handy to look over and see a washer bottle sat here with the fluid level in, and also be able to hear whether or not it's working, and keep it out of the way of stones and crap. But the major issue is that all the bracketry for the old bottle has been removed, so there's naturally nowhere to bolt it. What we have as far as safety, I haven't welded the cage in yet. I obviously can't afford that at the moment. It is located in the correct position with the feet sort of temporarily sat underneath it, so it does fit. It is in. It just needs the feet welding in. The seat is well out of date. I think it's was it 2014 is the latest this seat can be tested. Is it standard 1999? I think they've changed the standards about 10 times since then, and I do have a spare one which is just there. This one is sort of 90% sacrificial, in that I'm using it in the car for somewhere to sit while I'm working in it, which means it is going to get dirty and potentially damaged as well. However, it's still pretty good at the moment, and then the spare one over there will be swapped out once it gets time to use the car. In the seat at the moment is a cheap, nasty eBay special 3-point harness that was used to mock up the seatbelt mounting positions, so that I could put it in place, try it on, and make sure it was the correct length, and then measure out where the mounting points were supposed to go before I put in these ones, which are TRS harnesses. I've got a spare one of these as well. These ones actually wrap around your roll cage there, so that you only need 2 mounting points for the harness, and it's a 4-point as well. So that was done that way. I do have a helmet which is in a box on top of this. I've got, what have I got up here? I've got a motorbike helmet, I've got a mountain bike downhill racing helmet, and then in a box just behind the bonnet here is a car racing helmet which I bought for a track day a couple of years ago. I've taken the dashboard out, or the clocks out, which are sat there, and the dash surround, and then I've got to try and fit these in somewhere. I've taken the glass out of the front. It's actually plastic, but I've taken the glass out of the front of these because the plastic had gone cloudy and they were already cracked. You can see a crack on the bottom of there and one on the bottom of there that actually cracked the clear lens. I'm going to grind that down around the edge to make it smooth. I'm never going to touch them. It doesn't matter if they're open or not. They still run smooth. So I'm going to keep these in there, and then the clocks will be mounted on a plate that gets bolted to here, so that they sit right in front of me. I'm still struggling to work out how I'm going to do warning lights. Now, I'll have to actually look up how to wire in a set of warning lights. There are wires in here, cables and such, for the old clocks. I think I've actually cut them out now, so the old clock wiring is gone. So wherever that went to and whatever that was, I think it's probably going to be going from the flasher relay and from the headlight relay for the light warning bulb, or the wherever that one goes, and then obviously things like fog lights is going to be on there. You're going to have your rear heated screen and engine diagnostic stuff and that kind of crap is all going to come through that cable. The motorbike stuff, the engine stuff, is going to come through from the ECU anyway and be displayed on this dashboard. What I'll have to do is find a pinout for the motorbike dashboard and then run some new wiring up to that, so I've got the lights showing up on the dash. I think it's an MOT requirement actually, but I know the engine management one, if it shows, it's a failure. However, I'm not 100% sure if it doesn't show whether or not it's something they can check. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it. So, like I say, I'm in the middle of tidying up the loom at the moment, making it, well, it's not really making it lightweight, it's making it easier to look at in the future, being that there's only 2 real circuits that I need to have in there. A lot of these extra cables are for systems that are piggybacking on others, so you've got earth cables and I think it's the interior lights, which is a red and a blue cable. That's because that's on a ignition switch that goes and splits off into about 18 different wires going all over the car, and trying to trace it through when you're stripping a loom out of a Micra is an absolute pain in the dick, because you've got Nissan's answer to splicing cables can be anything from a 3-way clip that's crimped onto the cable and then wrapped in tape, or it's soldered and wrapped in tape, or it's soldered and wrapped in heat shrink, then wrapped in tape, then wrapped in loom, then wrapped in tape again, or there's 3 cables that have been twisted together and soldered and then just loomed over the top. It's likely there's been a committee of people at the factory building the looms, and nobody's got a consensus on how to actually achieve it. I mean, that wrap of wiring with 3 earth cables going in one end and 1 coming out the other one, that's factory. That's Nissan factory stuff for the Micra. And you've got loads of them everywhere. There's one here where it branches off again. There's one here where it branches off again. That's the earth there. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So that's like 6 different wires all coming off the same one, off the same earth point, which is back here, and it splits off and it's like a spider web of earth cables, and it's just a nightmare. You can see there's another one there for the earth, which then splits off into 2 to go up to the ignition switch. You've got a load down here. Look, you can see the bunch there of earth cables. None of them are needed. They go to plugs that have been cut off, so they're not needed on there. But yeah, that's what I've been dealing with, and it's the reason I basically just got me snips and a Stanley blade and cut the bloody lot out. So, I mean, this is, you can see here, this chunk of wiring. This is what I was talking about the interior lighting. So you've got 1 cable coming in, and then you've got a junction wrapped in tape, which is soldered, I do believe. It's quite soft in there, so it might be just twisted. And then you've got 3 coming out, and these 3 went over to another junction which is down here somewhere, which split off into 2 again. So it's just a nightmare. And this was on the other end. This was under the dashboard. So none of this is needed. This is all for, the yellow ones are for airbags, and then you've got the pink, purple and orange ones, I believe, are for central locking. The other ones are for lighting, which isn't required. The green ones are for the heating system, and these purple and green ones are speakers, which are spread around the car as well, were. And then you got the pink ones, which are for some other circuit. And then you've got your main power and earth in there as well. Some of these are twisted, some of them aren't. Some of them are shielded, some of them aren't. None of it's needed. Going in the bin. All these plugs are scrap as well. You've got some more plugs over there. Some immobiliser stuff which has been removed. Some of the immobiliser wiring is here as well. And that's pretty much it. So thank you for joining me. Hoping you're enjoying the series so far. It's keeping me out of the house, and it's keeping me busy, and it's taxing my brain slightly as well, trying to figure out Nissan's wiring. I'm trying to do it without the manual. I do have a manual. It's in the box just the other side of here with all my spare parts. However, because the loom is out of a 2002 K11, so one of the very, very last ones. The wiring loom in here doesn't match anything in the book. The Haynes manual, I think they stopped writing or stopped changing the Haynes manual at the very very last facelift, so that you've got the original K11 from 1992, then you've got a slight facelift in 95 where they changed grille. You've then got a major facelift, or another minor facelift in 97 when they brought out the SR instead of the Super S. Then you got the major facelift, which was different headlights, different bonnet and grille, different engine specs. So you got rid of the 1.3 and the 1 litre with the distributor, and you changed to a 1 litre with coil packs and a 1.4 with coil packs. Although there was some crossover, you can still get a facelifted Micra with a distributor engine. So there was some slight crossover there as they were trying to get rid of the old stuff. Then in 2001, there was another slight facelift where they changed the grills on the front, the tail lights, and the internals of the headlights at the front, and some of the bumpers. And then you've got the very, very last facelift, which was, it wasn't really a facelift, it was more of a trim option, and Renault were exerting more influence on Nissan as well. 2002 was the very last before they brought out the K12, which is the horrible bug-eyed looking one. And that one has all the options and everything on. I think it was the SLX was the top of the line one. Came in a 5-door, which is what this loom was from. I bought the a purple SLX to pinch the loom out of, and it was fully kitted out with everything. So yeah, that's the story of the Micra anyway. But because of that, Haynes stopped looking into differences with Micras and basically had pre-facelift and facelift. So there's a 1998 crossover or 99 crossover, and then after that they just kind of gave up and stopped looking. So with this loom being out of a 2002, yeah, nothing matches. All the colours are different. There's different boxes in here which shouldn't be. Some of the relays are in different places. Some of the connectors are different. Some stuff's similar, like the speaker wire. It's an international standard for speaker wiring and for battery power cables and earth cables and stuff like that. They're all pretty standard colours. It's the rest of the stuff that's gone completely haywire and none of it matches. Anyway, I've talked too much. It's a 23-minute video so far. So what I'll do, I'll shut the garage down, put this video up online, and I'd like some feedback if you've got it, some constructive or not. I'm not really bothered, just comments will do. Please like and share the video, and subscribe if you want to carry on watching and see how far I can push the no budget build ZX9R powered Micra. Thank you very much.